Hello, and welcome to this presentation titled Partnering for Change Foundations for Educators. This presentation provides foundational level knowledge about the model of partnering for change and is specifically designed for educators who work in schools with children. The content of this presentation was developed by Sandra Sahagian-Whalen, Jennifer Kennedy, Leah Dix, and Winona Campbell. The presentation is narrated by Jennifer Kennedy on behalf of the P4C team. You might have recently been told that your school will be receiving a service called Partnering for Change, and an occupational therapist will be visiting your school on a regular basis. What is the OT doing in the school and classrooms? What does this mean for your students? What does this mean for you? This presentation will help to answer some of these questions and more. First off, what is school-based occupational therapy? What do occupational therapists do in the classroom and school? School-based occupational therapy helps students with skills they need for daily activities at school, like writing, managing zippers, buttons, and snaps, opening lunch containers, or organizing their work. Occupational therapists, or OTs for short, work in classrooms and schools to support students who might struggle with things like focusing on classroom tasks, using their hands for writing or typing, or participating in gym class. They work with educators to help students improve skills, make changes to the environment or the task, and find ways to make school easier and more enjoyable for them. So what is Partnering for Change? Partnering for Change is an evidence-informed, tiered model of occupational therapy services for all students in school settings. The model is often referred to by its acronym P4C, which reflects the partnership and the principles of the model. P4C promotes needs-based care for students during the school day. P4C supports all students who are in school and promotes inclusive education. Why should we implement P4C? Since 2008, P4C has been developed and evaluated through both qualitative and quantitative research involving key representatives from government, healthcare decision-makers, service provider organizations, clinicians, school administrators, educators, and families working with the researchers. Our program of research has shown that P4C provides equitable access to occupational therapy services to support inclusion of all students, reduces wait lists and wait times, facilitates early identification of and early intervention with students needing occupational therapy support, supports students' ability to access the curriculum and participate successfully at school, and builds capacity of educators, occupational therapists, and families to understand and support students' needs. Additionally, our hope is that schools that receive P4C and have these outcomes will also reduce the likelihood of secondary consequences like reluctance to attend school, academic decline, social isolation, and mental health concerns which can occur due to repeated challenges in participating in daily tasks at school. Now we'll share the foundational components of the P4C model that help to promote these desired outcomes. Here is a visual of the P4C model, which will help guide us through how it's enacted in schools. The first aspect of the model we want to highlight are the 4 C's in Partnering for Change. Building capacity in P4C is the process of strengthening the knowledge and skills and resources of all involved. This approach emphasizes collaborative learning, shared leadership, and mutual support to empower educators, OTs, and families to effect positive change. By enhancing the capacities of each partner, the model aims to create a more effective, sustainable impact, fostering a sense of self-efficacy and commitment amongst all partners. Capacity building is done through collaboration and coaching while in the context of the classroom or school. In P4C, collaboration is a dynamic, ongoing interaction that emphasizes shared goals and vision, mutual respect and trust, shared decision-making, co-creation of solutions, resource sharing, and shared responsibility for achieving positive outcomes. Coaching in P4C means modeling ways to support students in the classroom environment and sharing observations and explanations in the moment. For example, an OT might demonstrate how a specific strategy works in the classroom context and explain why the OT would choose that specific strategy for that situation. Then the OT can help support the educator to feel confident and competent implementing the strategy themselves when the OT is not present. This is all happening in the context of the classroom or school. It is important to note that the context could mean the classroom, the gym, the area near the lockers, on the playground, or wherever the needs are in the school. In addition to the 4 C's, there are 2 core activities that form the foundation for intervention offered within the P4C model. The first is relationship building. Building relationships with the school community, including students, families, educators, support service providers, and administrators, is essential to the success of P4C. Each school is unique in terms of their culture and the needs of the students. It is important that the OT builds strong relationships to better understand the unique attributes of each school and how to best support the students. To build strong relationships, the literature and our research suggests that OTs need to be a regular and consistent presence in the school. This allows OTs to be available to educators as needed and to embed themselves in the school community. A regular and consistent presence is necessary for the OT to establish relationships, foster an understanding of P4C in the school community, and develop an understanding of school and student needs. This might look like the OT attending the school for 1 full day every few weeks on a regular basis. Because the OT has a regular and consistent presence, educators gain an appreciation that P4C is different than the services their school has received in the past, supporting the building of trust with the OT. Because the OT has time to build relationships in the school community, they feel validated and supported to effectively implement P4C. So what does a regular and consistent presence mean? When transitioning to the P4C model, our research suggests that 1 full day, no less than once every 2 weeks, is required to deliver all 3 tiers. We know that it takes time before you see all the outcomes of P4C, and an ongoing, regular, consistent presence is essential while you are still striving to see all the desired P4C outcomes. The second core activity that is foundational for all services offered is knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing means that the OT is able to provide evidence-based information about how to support students' participation in a way that educators can use in the classroom and families can use at home. The goal of knowledge sharing is to build the capacity of others by problem solving together, identifying and demonstrating strategies that enable successful participation, and then explaining how, when, and why these particular strategies work. Educators and families can then apply these strategies when appropriate and adapt knowledge in their day-to-day activities. Our research suggests knowledge sharing is reciprocal and bidirectional. Not only do P4C OTs share knowledge with all involved, but they also enhance their own capacity and knowledge through collaboration with educators, students, and families. Next, we will bring your attention to the triangle in the middle of the model. This triangle is called the response to intervention pyramid and highlights the types of services included in the P4C model. As shown here, there are 3 types of tiered services included in P4C. Tier 1 is universal services, Tier 2 is targeted services, and Tier 3 is individualized services. The arrows at the side of the response to intervention pyramid show that as the intensity of the P4C services increases, the number of students needing services at that level simultaneously decreases. By using a tiered approach, the P4C model enables many diverse student needs to be met by ensuring that the level of support is needs-based and reaches all students, from those who only need classroom-wide supports to those who need customized and individualized strategies to maximize their potential. We want to emphasize the highlighted arrows do not indicate the path that all students take. They refer to the intensity of services and how the number of students at each tier decreases with increasing intensity of services. Students can enter the model at any tier dependent on their service needs. For example, a new student who requires the use of a wheelchair and a change table will need the OT to provide individualized services, to teach educators how to transfer the student safely, and to assess the school environment in terms of accessibility for the student. However, this student might also benefit from Tier 1 services in the classroom. For instance, the OT might be supporting the educator to consider options of different forms of written output for the students in the classroom. At Tier 1, Universal Services, occupational therapists use their knowledge and skills to collaborate with educators to apply universal design for learning principles to adapt educational materials and the classroom environment. They might also support differentiated instruction for the benefit of all students. Occupational therapists engage in capacity building by sharing knowledge with educators regarding when, why, and for which students a strategy or environmental modification would be chosen, and by demonstrating how to implement these needed changes. Tier 1 universal services are beneficial for all students, but may be essential for some to support school participation and access to the curriculum. Knowledge sharing and capacity building at Tier 1 are also provided to the whole school community, including families. For example, the OT may be asked to support the development of an inclusive, accessible playground or library space, or provide a family education evening on topics such as summertime activities to support motor skill development. Knowledge sharing may happen informally through hallway or staff room conversations, or more formally through lunch and learns or professional development day activities on topics such as, are they ready to write? Or classroom design to support regulation. In terms of consent for Tier 1 services, a letter, email, or other communication needs to be sent to all families in the school. It's important for all families to be aware that an OT will be in the school, as the OT may visit various spaces and classrooms as needed during the school year. The OT at your school will provide the school staff with the letter that needs to be sent. It will include the following information: that OTs are regulated health professionals, the role of the occupational therapist, the types of activities and services that the OT will be providing at Tier 1 to support all students and build capacity of educators. The caregivers will be contacted by the educator and the OT if there are specific concerns regarding their child, and the contact information for the OT so the caregiver knows who to contact with questions or concerns. The aim for the communication is to be as clear as possible about the service so that families are not surprised by the presence of the OT in the classroom and are familiar with some of the areas that the OT will focus on with all students to promote their success. It is important to note that at Tier 1, OTs are not able to discuss a specific child's needs with an educator. Since OTs are regulated healthcare professionals, they need consent from a legal guardian to discuss specific needs of a child. Therefore, until the educator has gotten consent from the family to provide the OT with the child's name, the family's contact information, and the OT has gained informed consent, the OT cannot discuss needs of a specific child. This will be discussed more at Tier 2 and Tier 3. What does this mean for your class? Universal services mean that once invited by the educator, the OT might spend time with your class and work with you to support all students in the classroom or school environment. However, at this level, the OT won't know any personal details about the students in the class, like their names, and will work with the whole class rather than the individual students. The main focus of the OT at this level is building educators' knowledge and skills in supporting the students in the classroom from an occupational therapy perspective. What does this mean for your school? The OT might also support the school community and families at this level by sharing information in a classroom or school newsletter, offering a workshop on a topic of interest to families or educators, such as encouraging independence in self-care tasks like dressing, sharing videos and written resources that are helpful to educators and/or families, attending a school open house to introduce themselves to families and answer any questions they might have. As such, they are supporting the students on a class-wide and school-wide level and building the knowledge of both educators and families. Here is a universal services example of how an OT might promote social and emotional well-being in the classroom at a Tier 1 level. This could include training for educators and staff on regulation programs and frameworks designed by OTs, such as the Zones of Regulation or the ALERT program. The OT can then help educators with the application of these programs into their classroom or other school settings. Supporting educators in designing classroom environments that support well-being, for example, the creation of calm classroom spaces. Providing training for educators and staff on ways to promote social and emotional well-being in the school environment. Delivering class-wide sessions on deep breathing, mindfulness, yoga, and/or regulation, and integrating a variety of tools and activities needed for social and emotional well-being that can be easily accessed by all students, such as noise-canceling headphones, or weighted lap pads, or quiet, dim-lit spaces. These are all examples of universal services aimed to create a supportive environment for all students, not just those with identified needs, fostering social and emotional well-being, self-care, and enhancing overall classroom engagement and productivity. Promoting written productivity in the classroom is another universal services example. Strategies an OT might implement include providing strategies to educators on how to support the development of pencil grasp, completing a class lesson on working hand versus helping hand, line use, and spatial organization of the page, professional development for educators regarding options and considerations for different forms of written output, distributing resources and activity ideas for families to reinforce written productivity practice at home, fostering a collaborative approach to skill development. These are all examples of universal services aimed to enhance written productivity for all students, supporting their overall academic performance and promoting confidence in their abilities. Sometimes it will become apparent that a child might need more personalized support or recommendations. The educator and the OT might identify a few students in the class who might benefit from more intensive occupational therapy. The second tier on the response to intervention triangle, shown in the center of the triangle, is targeted services. At Tier 2, some students may require additional support or differentiated instruction to participate and access the curriculum, despite the provision of strategies for all students through Tier 1 services. Tier 2 targeted services are required to meet the needs of these students who require short-term targeted interventions focused on their specific needs. These can be provided individually or in a group setting depending on the needs of the student or students. Tiered services work a bit differently than other models and do not require a referral to be sent to an OT's agency. Instead, typically the students who need more OT support are identified through the educator and OT collaboration when working with the students at Tier 1. Once identified, OTs require informed consent to provide services at Tier 2 and Tier 3. As noted previously, the OT is a regulated health professional who must comply with certain privacy and confidentiality legislation and professional standards. Tier 2 services require the informed consent of the student, if capable and appropriate, the family, or a substitute decision maker, and must be obtained before this level of service can begin. In this model, it works nicely when the educator asks the family if they can share the family's contact information so that the OT can call the family and gain informed healthcare consent. What does this mean for your students? After you've contacted the family to ensure you can provide the OT with the family's contact information, the OT will call the family to get consent and gather more information about the child through discussions with you, the family, and through working with the student in the classroom. Once the OT has a good sense of the student's strengths and needs, then you and the OT can work together to decide on the best plan to support the student moving forward. Sometimes this means more individualized support from the educator and OT, and sometimes this means the student attends a group with other students specific to their needs. Either way, the OT and the adult supporting the student work together to help meet the student's needs and support their participation in school. In addition to working with the student at school, OTs offer different ways to support families at Tier 2. The OT at your school might offer virtual workshops and video conferencing to share information that might support the student's participation. This might include videos or written resources to help outline specific strategies to try at school and at home if appropriate. Additionally, the OT at your school might offer specific hours when they are available by telephone, video conferencing, or in person to answer any questions families might have. In P4C, the OT conducts a dynamic assessment where they observe the child in context, wherever the issue is occurring, and bring in their skills, expertise, and knowledge to analyze the environment, the task, and the child's performance. With the help of the educator, the therapist trials a variety of supports and strategies to evaluate which is most helpful to the child. An important component in P4C is that the therapists do this in collaboration with the educator, and everyone understands what was done and why to build capacity of all adults who support the child on a regular basis. In targeted services, the OT, in collaboration with the educator, monitors the response to the interventions over time. They determine whether the child's participation or performance has been enhanced by the trialed strategies or if something else needs to be tried. If the trialed strategy is not working well, they might observe the child again and consider a different strategy to try. If the trialed strategy is working well to support the child, then a specific plan will be created with collaboration between the OT, educator, and family. Through monitoring the response to the Tier 2 targeted interventions, it can be determined whether more intensive, longer duration, and/or highly individualized interventions at Tier 3 are necessary. The third tier at the top of the response to intervention triangle is individualized services. Fewer students will require additional support beyond Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports to participate and access the curriculum. Tier 3 individualized services focus on the fewer specific students who have more complex needs and require accommodations. The OT and educator may collaboratively identify these students based on their response to strategies implemented at Tiers 1 and 2. Alternatively, some students might access OT services beginning at Tier 3 because of previously identified needs or the complexity of their needs. For example, a child who received OT prior to school entry, who requires individualized services to support their transition to school, such as specialized equipment, might enter the P4C model at Tier 3. Overall, students who require individualized services may need more help to improve certain skills, require changes in their environment, or need special equipment and accommodations to help them join in and succeed in school. These children might require referrals to other professionals at school or in the community to fully support their current and future needs. At the third level, the OT continues to require consent to provide these services. They will also continue to work with you and the family to decide on the best plan for the student. The OT might request families' consent to make referrals to other professionals at school or in the community if all partners agree that this could be beneficial. What does this mean for your students who need Tier 3 services? If your student needs individualized services, you will likely have decided this alongside the OT. The OT will communicate this with the family, and together you can all decide on the best plan to support the student moving forward. Your student will have access to OT support specific to their needs for a longer period of time, and you can be confident that they will be supported at school to participate as best they can. The last part of the model we want to highlight is the outer circle, which emphasizes the collaboration and equal partnership that is required amongst educators, students, families, and OTs to support the inclusion, participation, and well-being of all students through a tiered model of service. In particular, we want to highlight considerations when partnering with families. Since families are not typically present when the OT is at the school, P4C research has shown that the partnership with families and therapists can be challenging. Factors that have been shown to influence the family-therapist relationship include competing demands on OTs and families' time, families' awareness of the service, families and OTs' readiness to engage, the relationship that OTs have with schools and educators, unique socio-demographic factors in the school communities, and the consistency and availability of OT services. Many of these factors can be a challenge to the family-therapist relationship. However, our research shows that if OTs have a strong relationship with the educators and school staff, this can help to build connections with families. Additionally, the consistent presence and availability of the OT throughout the school year can positively influence the family-therapist relationship by allowing families to have more comfort with the therapist and more opportunities to connect throughout the school year. What might the OT do to support families? At Tier 1, the OT might engage families by sharing information through resources and materials outlining community activities and supports, classroom or school newsletters, providing a family information evening on a topic of interest to all families, such as the promotion of independence and self-care, making videos and written resources that are good for all, attending a school open house. Sharing information with families using these strategies may enhance their awareness of the skills, knowledge, and the role of the OT in supporting all students. Ensuring families can contact them with questions about OT or the service creates opportunities for families to initiate contact with the OT, which may support family engagement. There are many strategies that can be implemented to foster the family-therapist relationship and family engagement at Tier 2 and 3. For instance, virtual workshops and video conferencing can be used to share information and/or demonstrate to families the strategies, tools, and resources that might support their child's participation. OTs can also be available during family educator interview evenings and open houses for meetings with specific families. Additionally, hosting OT office hours, where the OT is available by telephone, video conferencing, or in person, might also support family engagement. How can you help make P4C a success in your school as an educator? Firstly, reach out and have a conversation with the OT. Think about how the OT might be beneficial in your classroom and reach out to the OT to have a conversation. Let the OT know what you believe are the key needs of your class and where you'd appreciate their support. The OT can work with you to decide what might be the most helpful in your class. Share what strategies you've already implemented in your class and what's been effective so far with the OT at your school. Ask for learning opportunities on topics you'd like to explore further, such as the ALERT program or how to apply universal design for learning principles to the classroom environment. And have an open mind. This is a novel way of working together and will be a change for all involved, but this method has been shown to lead to many positive outcomes for all the students in your class. In summary, the P4C tiered model considers the needs of the child, educator, school, and family when determining the services that are required. The model reflects the partnership between OTs, educators, and families to create physical, social, and learning environments that facilitate successful engagement and participation for all students. Working from a foundation that focuses on relationship building and sharing of knowledge, these partners collaboratively implement tiered services to meet the needs of all students in the school. This concludes the P4C Foundations content for educators. Thank you for taking the time to learn about P4C, its implementation in school settings, and how important your role is to its success.